Welcome back to Season 3, Episode 4 of Life Beyond Loss, the podcast. This is a guest show where we share just the most amazing and inspiring stories of how people are navigating their grief and loss through to their healing and often transformation as a result of their experience. I'm your host, Louise Kresick, grief and loss coach, and today I'm talking to a very special lady, Rachael Field, who is the founder of Eva and Alma. Rachael also has a very unique role as a soul midwife, and if you don't know what that is, then stay tuned because we're going to talk more about that. She also shares her story, which encompasses so much loss around living with a neurological condition, dealing with chronic pain, overcoming major surgery, and in those very difficult 2 years for her, losing her nan and the trauma that sort of surrounded this. She also lost her job and her career and financial independence as part of the journey. However, where this leads to for Rachael is just simply amazing, and how this has transpired into the development of her health and wellbeing business as it is now is just absolutely fascinating. So join us on this amazing episode. Excited about this because I'm joined on today's show by Rachael Field, who is founder of Eva and Alma. And welcome, Rachael. I am very excited about this.
Me too, Lou. Morning, thank you.
It feels like it's kind of been a long time coming because we talked about doing this for a while.
Yeah, we have, but it's obviously meant to happen today, and that's all that matters.
Exactly. So, why don't we start just by, I guess, just telling people just a little bit then about, Eva and Alma and kind of what you do, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Eva and Alma does have two sides to it, but I'll start with the name. So Eva and Alma means life and soul. A lot of people think my name's Eva, or they message me and go, "Oh, hi, how are you both? How is Eva and Alma?" I'm like, "I'm really sorry, it's just me." Eva and Alma means life and soul, which is very much what it's about. So in a nutshell, Eva and Alma helps people find deep inner peace in life through the sacred act of self-care, which I try and encourage the balance of mind, body, soul wellness. That takes on the form of, I've got an online self-care store, I've got a soul sanctuary where I do and work with different healing modalities. I run international retreats, I teach yoga and meditation. So that's the life side of things, about finding deep inner peace and loving yourself enough to go on this self-care journey. And then I also work at end of life as well. So I bring peace into the journey at end of life as I'm a fully qualified soul midwife. So although it falls under the same brand, that side of my work is called The Sacred Journey Home by Eva and Alma. And it's a holistic, emotional and spiritual support for somebody and their loved ones who's going through that journey to their end of life.
That is, wow, it's just fantastic. I love everything you do anyway. Just the deep inner peace really kind of rings true for me in terms of grief and loss as well, but also because loss isn't, I work with many different clients, it's not always about losing a loved one, and sometimes people lack that kind of inner peace and that ability to kind of self-care after, for example, something like a relationship's come to an end, and quite often have like low self-worth and that sort of thing. So I suppose it's kind of encompassing all of that, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but I love the fact that it's international as well. That just sounds so great, doesn't it? The retreats.
But let's talk about, I really want to talk about the soul, because you mentioned Soul Midwife there, and I guess there will be people out there who don't know what a soul midwife is. So
yeah, and I totally understand that. Most people hear the term midwife and think, oh, babies.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's just not what it's about. But the term, a wonderful woman called Felicity Warner down in Dorset founded the movement around, well, she's been working at End of Life for around 40 years, but she founded the movement over 20 years ago. And there are now almost 1,000 fully trained and qualified soul midwives across the world, actually, but the majority of them being in the UK. And it was actually one of the patients in a hospice who Felicity was working with years ago who phoned up the hospice and said, I want to speak to my soul midwife. So it was actually a family that actually named the term soul midwife. And then Felicity looked into it and was able to use it. Because we are very much like midwives, as midwives birth a soul into the world. Midwives, we midwife a soul as it leaves earth. It sounds very woo-woo. I suppose it is a little bit, but it's actually really beautiful work. It's from the heart. It's just love.
Yeah.
We're trained in love and to respect the person, whatever belief system they have, wherever they're at. But our saying is, meet them where they are, not where you want them to be. So if someone who is at end of life or coming to terms with a terminal diagnosis and they might be feeling angry, my job isn't to go in and make them not be angry. My job is to sit with them in that pain, because it's perfectly acceptable to be angry in that moment. And if they don't release it, it creates tension. So in a nutshell, soul midwives emotionally, holistically and spiritually support and guide a dying person and their loved ones through the journey. We're trained in various different therapies, holistic therapies, how to emotionally support. So we work with anxieties, we work with people that go into a depression towards the end to help them find that peace. We work with the loved ones. And then spiritually, and we're non-denominational, which means we support the belief system of anybody, because it's not about my belief system, it's about the belief system of the person that's dying, and that can be anything. Also, we help the loved ones and we help with their belief systems. I just want to create a bit more. I will never ever take trauma away from I will never ever take the grief and the heartbreak away from losing somebody, but I can help alleviate the trauma.
Yes, I love that.
And that's my role.
I love it. And there's so many crossovers there for me in just the principles of coaching and how I work as well, because this is about coming at it from somebody else's world and the beliefs that they hold, and looking at it, I guess, sort of through their eyes for me in coaching. And it's not about fixing things, is it? It's about offering the tools and the techniques and helping them with that sort of finding their own answers and their own resources and things like that.
100%. We are so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit.
I just think it's amazing work, because I feel like I haven't apart from with my dad, because my mom's death was very sudden, my dad's was more of a long-term illness. My own experience was just that the focus, obviously, with services that are in this country and are amazing, by the way, but it's kind of the medical model, isn't it? It's everything has to fit within that medical model and doesn't always take account of the emotional and kind of the psychological aspects of this. So I think that is what is amazing to me about what you do.
Thank you. Yes, that's the thing to add, that we're non-medical, and we're not here to take anything away from the medical world. They are amazing people, they are amazing service, but death doesn't have to be purely medicalised. There's a big gap at the moment, and it's just filling that gap. This is ancient work that's been forgotten.
I love that. I love the way you describe that.
It's ancient work that's been forgotten, that we're just trying to bring back, because there's a gap, and we support the medical teams, because medical teams don't have time to go as deep with people. They don't have the time, and they feel pushed and pulled, and we're here to give people that time.
So I know we've talked about in the past, Rachel, that there is a story around your, you know, your why, if you like, about setting up your business and founding Eva and Alma. Would you be happy to share?
Yeah, certainly. It's not a very considered strategic response because it's a bit all over the place, which is exactly how all this happened. So please forgive me. But so pre-2011, I thought I was a very healthy woman. I exercised daily. And not just exercise, I trained. So I trained with the swimming club. I was always in the gym doing like boxercise and Zumba. I played National League netball. I was very, very fit. And I thought my mindset was very healthy. I had quite a high pressure career. So basically I'd had a spinal condition from the age of 17, and my whole life I'd just pushed through the pain, thinking that was the right thing to do, telling myself everything was going to be okay. I used the power of my mind to push through pain barriers, psychological barriers, and just kept going, and I thought that was healthy. I also had an inner belief, which isn't unhealthy, but I had a strong belief in myself that whatever I put my heart and mind to, I would succeed if I was prepared to work hard enough, if I really wanted it. So to me, that's what I was healthy. I had a healthy diet. I was great relationships, great career, wonderful boyfriend at the time. Life was good. Then in 2011, had been in hospital a couple of times before this. That was quite serious, but I'd recovered really quick. But in 2011, to cut a long story short, I found myself having 9 weeks of real spinal trauma, and because I used the power of my mind, I looked okay from the outside. I wasn't screaming. I was able to walk. When I went to the doctors to get some support, and I sat in front of the doctor and I said, I know I don't look it, but something really serious is happening in my body. I'm in immense pain. Please help me. Unfortunately, they didn't believe me because I didn't look like somebody should that had a really serious spinal condition. So I was stuck for 9 weeks in intense physical trauma, to the point now I'm now living with a neurological condition because my whole body was so traumatized it rewrote my nervous system. And I'm now under a neurologist in London who has confirmed it's during those 9 weeks that's caused me to now live with a chronic health condition. It's currently incurable. I started off very much with I'm going to cure this, I can do it, and I've had to let that go. So hope hasn't gone, but I'm having to accept that this is where I am in this moment. But during that year, so after the 9 weeks, I then found myself having 2 minor spots, because as soon as someone actually scanned me, they were like, oh, this is quite serious. I had 2 minor spinal ops, a mini stroke scare, and then major spinal surgery. And it was a massive life change. Then following that, post spinal surgery, I used the power of my mind to physically recover. So I was 10 days after the surgery, staples came out, I was straight in the swimming pool, everyone was cheerleading me, saying, you're amazing, you're really tough. I was doing it to myself. I was ignoring my body. My body was screaming at me to stop and let it heal, and I didn't. And that's added and sort of imploded within my nervous system as well. It's not helped matters. It doesn't mean this happens to anybody else. It's just my journey, and it was very personal. It was almost as if I was meant to go through this. The 18 months, probably a little bit less than that, following that period, I lost my nan. Very tragically, actually, it was almost history repeating itself. My nan went to the doctors saying she was in a lot of pain and she didn't feel well, and because she didn't look like somebody that was in pain, they didn't believe her, and it turns out she was actually dying from bowel cancer and had a sheathed spinal nerve. So it was really odd actually and surreal, and we lost my nan, and that was quite traumatic for me actually, because my nan was my maternal connection. I absolutely loved the bones off her. She was a very special woman, and it was horrible to see somebody go through that. I also lost my job, my career that I'd worked so hard that I loved, because the level of flexibility my newfound health condition had left me with meant that I needed a level of flexibility that my career was unable to support. It also meant I was unemployable, because no new employer would be able to take me on with the level of flexibility I needed at that time. I was the main breadwinner. We just bought a new house before I came poorly. So you can imagine the level of financial stress that was suddenly put on me as well, and my husband. And I lost my independence. So I've worked hard to get a lot of it back for the first 18 months or so. I didn't have much independence, and that was hard from somebody that believed she could do whatever she wanted to do whenever she wanted. So then I started to grieve a lot, and yeah, you can imagine what those couple of years were like. I lost a lot. I grieved a lot. I grieved a death. I grieved the loss of my job. I grieved the loss of my health, the life that I'd carved out. It was a lot, but that's where Eva and Alma came out, because it was my own journey into self-care, where I realised that actually self-care is healthcare, and self-care is a superpower. So over the past 8-9 years, so bear in mind it took me 5 years to end up going on to this route to the neurologist in London, because for 5 years nobody knew what was wrong with me, because it's not very common what's happened. So for 5 years, although I was having tests and the doctors were very much, okay, there's a lot going on, we can't leave you, but we don't know how to help you. So for 5 years I was having tests, but nobody knew what was wrong with me. I went down a psychological route, which was great. So, I'm somebody that if I'd had a psychological condition or a mental health problem, I would own it. So I went down that route. Thankfully now it's not that, but I've learned a lot on that route, and it's taught me a lot about my mindset, my psychology, and it's the best thing I've ever done, which is why I'm a massive fan of mental health counsellors, coaches like yourself, Lou, massive fan. I do believe it's the next step in our evolution. I believe until we start taking our minds as serious as we take our bodies, we're not going to evolve. And I do think this is why everything's coming into the media at the moment about mental health and emotional well-being, because it is the next stage for us. I do believe that. I'm going off track, I'm sorry, Lou.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I agree.
So that journey was brilliant. So I knew how to physically take care of myself, although I thought I did. So the exercise and everything was great, but I pushed it too far when I shouldn't have done. I then learned how to rein that in. I then went on a mind and emotional well-being journey. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my mindset. I had to accept a lot. I had to change my whole mindset, which was brilliant. And then I ended up having a spiritual awakening a few years after that as well. So I learned very quickly that I was going on a mind, body, soul balance journey, and wellness was turning out not to be what I thought it was. I thought if you pushed, believed in yourself, took care of your body through exercise and diet, you were healthy, and you are healthy, but you can be out of balance, and that isn't healthy, and wellness isn't what we think. So I didn't have any medical support on these 5 years. I had nobody coaching me, telling me what to do. I had nobody by my side helping me. I had to go within. And that, for me, it feels now looking back, I was always meant to do that, because I wouldn't have learned as much if I didn't go within as much. So I learned that through pure self-care, I'm not anti-medical world at all. This isn't what this is about. The medical world couldn't help me, and because they don't know much about my condition, they can't help me very much now either. They just have to keep an eye on me and take care of me, but not like other conditions, because they just don't understand it. So I literally have to use self-care as my healthcare, and without that I wouldn't be able to walk. I would literally have no life. I certainly wouldn't be able to work, let alone help anybody else. So I am living proof that if you take your health seriously from a self-care point of view and see it as a necessity, not a luxury or being selfish or spoilt, and do it in the right way, it's really powerful. And I realised that actually I'm meant to be sharing this with other people. I'm meant to be sharing that self-care and mind, body, soul balance is where a lot of our hidden superpowers lie, and where a lot of true wellness comes from. And that's where Eva and Alma was born. Now, in terms of the end of life work, that almost happens at the same time, which is why it's a little bit all over the place. So yeah, it's almost, this is why I feel I'm meant to go on this journey, because it just happened over a period of time. I didn't see it coming either. So I know this goes against a lot of spiritual teachings, but I did not visualize this happening. I haven't done a mood board. It was just, I feel it's my destiny, and sometimes your destiny is not a choice. Even though it is, it's not. It's really beautiful stuff. But anyway, that's another story. So after my nan died, so when my nan was dying, she wanted to die at home. Now, there were 14 of us who loved her dearly, who were there day and night trying to support my nan, but none of us knew what to do. So it wasn't about the fact that there wasn't anybody with my nan and she couldn't die at home. We didn't know how to deal with it. We were watching our matriarch and absolutely wonderful woman die, and not very pleasantly, because we didn't know how to support her. We had a wonderful Marie Curie nurse that came out for the night for a few hours, who also, she could only do so much herself, and she was struggling to understand what was happening. We had a wonderful team from Russell's Hall come out from oncology to see if they could change her drugs, but none of it was helping. And it was becoming traumatic. And it was actually a wonderful Marie Curie nurse, from what I remember, who stepped in and rang the hospice and said, there's a lady who wants to die at home, but it's not working out. And if you don't step in, this family will never recover from the trauma. So Mary Stevens turned up at our doorstep and thankfully convinced my mum to take my nan into the hospice, because you have to understand, my nan had said she wanted to die at home.
Yeah.
So my mum wanted to protect that, but it had gone like a birth plan. Things can change. So I can imagine women that want to give birth at home, and all of a sudden it changed and they have to go into a medical environment, and that can happen at death. But my mum was very much like, I want to honour my mum's requests, but it had gone out of the window. That was not an option anymore. So Mary Stevens stepped in, and as soon as they got my nan into Mary Stevens, she just went at peace, like was just peaceful. So she was not communicating, but I knew she was peaceful. And she spent 3 days in the hospice, and they were absolutely wonderful. Not only did they take care of my nan with nothing but love and peace, they also took care of us as a family, and I know that would have meant more to my nan than her own journey. So when my nan died, I knew straight away that I was meant to go and say thank you. So I signed up when I could to be a volunteer. I wanted to pay back the hospice for the care they gave my family. So I signed up to work as a ward assistant in inpatients. So what that meant was I made tea for people who were either on respite or at end of life and had gone in as an inpatient, or if they weren't communicative, I was making tea for their loved ones and making sure everyone was okay, basically. And 6 years later, I'm still there. It's not my plan. It turned out to be the best thing I could have ever done for the family. I know my nan would be super proud, and it felt really natural to me to be in that environment. And it wasn't, the hospice isn't the type of place you think it is. It's actually really cool. And it felt natural. And then it was actually one of the patients who sent me a message and said I should look into being a soul midwife because I have a special gift. I walked into his room. These were his words, by the way. Sorry, this is not my ego. I walked into his room, put him at peace, made him feel calm. The energy in the room changed. I supported his family, and he was very grateful for it and told me I should look into being a soul midwife. Now, bear in mind, I'd never heard of this term before. And I, like many people, hear the term midwife and think babies. But I didn't know, I didn't question it, but something deep inside of me stirred. Now, I've had people come up to me and say, you should do this, you've got this gift. And that's lovely, but I'd never had such a reaction like I did then. It felt deep from the soul and from the universe. Something felt I had to look into it. So I got home, Googled it, and a soul midwife school came up. And then I realised it was end of life work. I didn't look any further than that. I just knew I had to get in touch with the teacher, Felicity. And very quickly I ended up being enrolled in the school. I couldn't afford it because I'd lost my job, bear in mind. I couldn't afford it. But the universe found a way. And I ended up going on the training. I didn't even look into the modules or what I was studying because I didn't feel I needed to, because I knew I was meant to be there. So I was having quite a shock when I got on the training. I was like, okay. But loved every second, and it felt so natural. And that's my journey to being a soul midwife. So I fully qualified in 2017, and I've actually now, by Felicity, which is a massive honour, because I actually sobbed when I found out a few weeks ago, I've been asked to become a mentor for soul midwives now, which is just, for me, amazing, such an honour. So yeah, And so I still volunteer at the hospice, but I've just officially been taken on. So I've dropped to ward assistant, and I'm now officially a volunteer soul midwife there. But I'm also a professional as well. So I volunteer and donate some time still, but then I'm also a professional soul midwife in the capacity there as well, which is massive for the movement. And yeah, I work in the community as well. So, you know, I'm almost called to work with the right people. It definitely feels like a calling. You can take whatever from whatever that you believe, because I don't believe any of us are wrong. So yes, I know it's a bit long-winded, but that's really where it all came. So it felt like I know I working like end of life, and then I was very much feeling that I needed to share and empower people to go on their true wellness journey to balance their mind, body and soul. But it felt like they were coming together, because Eva and Alma is about supporting people to find that inner peace. We have the ability to do it. It's just our modern world, we've forgotten a little bit how to do it. And I'm not telling people to like ditch their responsibilities, stop work, but you can still find that snippet of inner peace. And once you feel it and remember you've got that ability, it changes your life. And then I'm bringing peace at end of life for people. And I'm also teaching people how to support their loved ones on end of life as well through my workshops. So it very feels like they do come together. So bringing peace in life and death in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
It happens.
I love it. It's just like, where do you even start with this story? Because it's just like,
I know, it's such a mishmash.
it's fantastic. And like you say, that beautiful journey of how it's just all kind of just come together really very beautifully for you. And I think it's amazing. And I'm just wondering as well, in terms of like mind, body, soul, what do you think you would say to somebody who is experiencing grief right now? How do we get that balance?
Okay, the first thing I'd say to somebody that's experiencing grief is, I believe in you. I believe you can find the peace again. And very much that balance is very personal. So when I say I believe in you, I suppose the first question is, do you believe in yourself? So start to believe in yourself, that you will know the answers as to where you need that balance. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you start to be kind to yourself, start listening to yourself, whether that's through meditation or just silence, or going into grief counselling or coaching to actually unpick that psychologically to start with. Or everyone's journey is so unique. I don't feel it's my job to tell people what their journey needs to look like. My job is to empower people and to recognise, to connect with their mind, their body and their soul, and balance that. But only you will know deep down where that imbalance is. So I really genuinely feel that, you know, grief is complicated. It's okay to feel how you're feeling, honour how you're feeling, be really kind to yourself, give yourself a break. One day you will make friends with your grief. And I know that sounds odd, because grief does not disappear. It doesn't go. So I can use an example here, if that's okay, from my grief with my nan, because I've talked about my nan on here. And I obviously grieved for my nan hard when I lost her, which was good. Grieving hard in the beginning is good. It's not a bad thing. It's not a sign that someone's not coping. It's good to release it. Suppressing grief causes more complications. So like now, a few years on, the grief's still there. I have moments I might drive past. She used to love, am I allowed to name a supermarket? Is that again? Love Sainsbury's in Amblecote. That was like her go-to place. And whenever we were coming round as a family, she'd go and she'd buy cooked chicken with tiger bread, and she'd do like hot sandwiches. And just a memory of just love from my nan. And sometimes I walk into Sainsbury's in Amblecote and I will smell that hot chicken in the back, and tears will just start flowing. But the difference is, it's not tinged with sadness anymore. I'm tinged with, aren't I blessed to have had such a wonderful, caring, loving woman in my life? So I still feel the emotion, I still feel I miss her, but it's a different type now.
That really resonates with me, actually, because I think over time, like you say, the grief doesn't go, but I think how you experience the grief is what changes, and it's not necessarily for me, I describe it as feeling a bit lighter. It doesn't feel as heavy. And like you say, that sadness can feel quite heavy. But so totally resonates.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. So yeah, it's just, I believe you'll get to peace again, but you need to believe in yourself and be kind to yourself. That is the only thing I can say right now. And just, I'm sending so much love to anybody listening who is grieving for loss of what in whatever form, because I have been through it and it is hard. But just know that you are genuinely loved. Genuinely, even if you haven't got somebody in your space in this moment giving you love, you are loved. There are people out there sending love out into the universe constantly. Just know that it's there.
So that's beautiful. So this is about, what I hear is just giving yourself that space and to understand what it is that you personally need, you know, as that individual, and know that you are loved and supported. And that is it. It's so simple, Rachel, and yet so empowering and so effective.
It is, but it's also difficult to grasp as well. I understand that when you are in the darkest point of grief, these words might absolutely trigger anger inside of you, because at this time you will not feel you can get your way out. But I believe in you.
Absolutely. I'm just like, you know what? Because you've just done me into silence a little bit, which is unusual for me. Because I'll just talk and talk normally. But I just think everything you said, with your story, the journey that you've been on, just those words of encouragement are just so powerful. And I just don't feel like I need to waffle or add anything. So I just want to I just really want to kind of round it off by sharing with people, because we will put some links to your website and stuff like that, but
thank you.
Telling people, if that they feel like they need to reach out to you in some way, where can they kind of find you, or how can you get hold of you, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to share that now, or are you putting the links up?
No, we'll do both.
Okay. So my website's www.evaandalma.com, and on there you'll find my Sacred Self-Care online store and my Soul Sanctuary. Very limited bookings at the moment. For my end of life work, it's evaandalma.com/the Sacred Journey Home. So that's my website information. You can email me at info@evaandalma.com. But I do also on Instagram and Facebook, Instagram mainly, share wisdom almost every day. So my Instagram handle is @Eva_and_Alma. And I have a separate account dedicated for my end of life work, because on Instagram I did want to separate it, because I know when you're grieving, wellness is still important, but someone even mentioning the word death could trigger some emotions that you're not ready to deal with. So I have purposely separated it for that reason. So the handle for my end of life work is @the Sacred Journey Home on Instagram only. So that's how you can follow me. You can sign up to my email list on my website, which I've given you the information for, and I email you occasionally with events and news and bits and bobs. So yes, that is how you can contact me.
Fantastic, Rachel. Thank you so much for making the time today to come on and just talk about this. And like you said, it's just, I think for me, a big part of this is just about sharing the story and getting that message out there. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me on. I feel really honoured to be on your podcast, Lou. There's some wonderful people on it. I've heard a few of them before. It's brilliant. Loving your work.
Thank you.